All right then. So we're all ready. We're all mic'd up. So I'm welcoming. I bid you all a fond welcome. Welcome to everybody. Mrs. Ouellette.
What has been revised, and after that we'll have a question period. You can come up and ask your questions. Madame Ouellette va donner les données.
So she'll give you the data, the changes we'll be proceeding with. You'll see that we're easy to get along with. People are saying that you'll close down hunting activities throughout the municipality. That's what's going to happen. We need, especially during the springtime with animals that cause damage everywhere, we need hunters. And I like I like to eat some wild animals with sauce myself. So we're not going to stop hunting. Oops, we have a little bit of feedback here, folks. Did you hear that?
Okay. Now I'll let Madame Ouellette give her details. Je vais laisser Madame Ouellette donner ses détails.
So I'll have Mrs. Ouellette give you the details. All right. That's fine. So, Mr. Mayor and members of council, I'm going to proceed with this presentation in both languages, really. This will be a bilingual presentation. I don't know if everyone hears me correctly, but the purpose of my presentation tonight is to advise council of what's going to happen, and we've made sure that the public is here to listen to what's in the report, and I'm addressing town council, and it's not because I turned my back to the people here. You have to speak closer to the mic, please, because they can't hear you at the back. All right. Let me just fix that just a tad bit, Mr. Mayor. All right, fine. Not too close to my mouth. Thank you then. All right.
I present my report to council. The fact that I'm facing council and not the public is not as disrespect. It's just that I need to address council with the results of the consultation. So before I begin, I just wanted to reiterate the reason why the firearms bylaw is being revised. So there was a member's motion, and that was passed in December 2017, which mandated staff to revise the bylaw to include some areas in the Pego Road area, so CIH and Clarence Rockland Arena. So staff went back to revise the bylaw, and by doing that, we opened a public consultation in order to get the comments from the public to be able to consider all that and make a more informed decision that works with the population. So that's the reason of the consultation. Obviously, it worked very well, and we're very pleased with all the comments that we got back. Donc, en français.
So in French, just to make everyone aware of the fact that the purpose of revising the bylaw is based upon the premise of a bylaw that was adopted by council in December 2017 to revise the restricted areas to include a particular area close to Pego Road, close also to the Hockey Academy and the Clarence Rockland Arena. So the purpose of the public consultation was to obtain the public's thoughts to enlighten council members further to take a better decision as time goes by. So, at the regular meeting, at the Committee of the Whole meeting of June the 18th, There was a draft that was submitted to council at the committee of the whole meeting then, and really it allowed us to readjust the restricted areas to include all future subdivisions that had been planned, that were set out in the files that we had on hand at the municipality. Also, everything. And we also looked at the Forêt La Rose area where there were development of certain recreational paths in the past few years. So this is what you saw in the first draft.
Brought to council and went out for consultation. There was an extended prohibition of the discharge of firearms to better reflect the new subdivisions that are in development that we have on our books as being processing at this time. Also, there was the more restrictions in the Forêt La Rose due to trail developments that have been developed in the last few years. Now, all the comments that were received by the public in writing were submitted to council for consideration. So with those comments, the definition of firearms was revised based on some comments to define a firearm to be as defined in the Firearms Act and the Criminal Code. Donc en français, la définition.
So in French, the firearms definition following the comments that were received was defined as a firearm as defined in the Firearms Act and the Criminal Code. Another change also that was brought about and that was implemented following the comments we received was this one. Because at this point in time, the bylaw that is currently enacted prohibits firearm discharge along the Outaouais River right up to the middle point, well, where the Quebec border lies. And what we did, following the comments we received, is that we revised, and in any event, I recommend that on the river proper, we follow the riverbank edging. The riverbank, the shore, the shoreline basically. But still 150 meters from any residence, either on a navigable watercourse or watercourse. So later on, I'll show you the maps that have been drawn up, should I say. There are some non-navigable waters in between Pago Road and the new EQ home subdivision. Now, along that stretch, there is a non-navigable water course, and this is akin to a prohibited zone.
Subject to the comments, a new recommendation is being made so that anywhere on navigable water or not, within the riverbanks, up to the riverbanks of the Ottawa River, that it be prohibited. However, currently the prohibition exists up to the middle of the river where the Quebec border is. So right now, based on the comments, that's what's being recommended. However, in the Pago Road area, between the new development of EQ Homes and Pago Road, it's not navigable water. However, it would be within the urban boundary, and that would be recommended to be prohibited.
Another recommendation stemming from comments that were received was to allow us to modify or to changed that section that stated that there would be a restriction within 50 meters of all occupied buildings or structures, or non-occupied structures or buildings. We did receive many comments with regard to this, seemed to be reasonable. And we recommended that this clause be modified to state 150 meters from all habitable structures other than that property that discharges a firearm or that has the express permission of the legal occupant or the owner of the property, in keeping with the law. So on your own property, in that zone that is not prohibited, one could discharge a firearm as long as he or she is at 150 meters from a building.
Comments received. With the section 3.34 is being amended or suggested to be amended to read that within 150 meters of any dwelling other than a dwelling owned or lawfully occupied by the person discharging the firearm or a person having the express permission to own or lawful occupier of that property in accordance with the provisions of the Ontario Trespass to Property Act. So therefore, if you're not within a prohibited zone, you could basically discharge a firearm within 150 meters of a residence or a structure on your own property, or a person that has your express permission could do so. Also subject to or further comments received, section 419 is being proposed to be changed. It's basically just something that was probably omitted to put in. It comes from the previous bylaws. I think the two previous bylaws were read the same thing. It's just that bows and crossbows, there are target practices in school establishments in Rockland, and this clause was really meant to be an exception for the school establishment. So obviously, the school principal would have to authorize the practice in writing. Donc, l'article 419.
So, section 4.1.9 was suggested to us to be modified to clarify a particular section of that clause. The intent from the very get-go was to target those bow and crossbow activities that are conducted at school, those who teach bow and crossbow shooting, to be able to do so. So following the comments that were received once again, those prohibited zones that needed to be revised were revised along the river shore as stated earlier on, and future subdivisions were removed from the prohibited zones, and they are all shown on maps for information purposes. Eventually, when subdivisions will be called upon to be developed and buildings will be standing there, of course, they will automatically be deemed as prohibited areas.
Prohibited zones have been revised along the Ottawa River banks, as I said earlier. And also, future subdivisions were removed from the prohibited zones, but they're now shown as information only. As those subdivisions become reality and the construction begins, they will become prohibited also. So I have some maps for you. This is basically what is being proposed as the prohibited zone, all the dark gray, and you can see the subdivisions there that are shown. Those are future subdivisions. And those boundaries reflect the urban boundaries. Donc, la cédule que vous
So, Schedule A that you're able to readily see represents the Rockland sector and really shows where the prohibited zones suggested would lie, and they are located within the Rockland urban sprawl. You also note future subdivisions that have been identified. If I compare to what we had beforehand, what was marked out in pink or beige, if you wish, that's the zone that's prohibited or deemed to be prohibited at present, and we would add to that what is shaded in gray. All of this section that is up on top to the right-hand side, in between Pago Road and the new subdivision. And it spreads out 150 meters on either side of the road that leads us on to Clarence Island. So with regard to Schedule B, the same rules basically apply, but then we'd be dealing with those zones that are located within villages themselves. Now, given changes brought about, there aren't all that much added. We added the 150 meter provision. And Schedule C this time, once again, there's a tad bit more difference this time around because we do have the Bourget recreational path that runs along from right to left, along with 150 meters worth of restrictions.
It reflects the trail system, the recreational trail in Bourget. So the trail itself, plus 150 meters on each side. The other, and then you have residential subdivisions that exist, and you have one that is projected that shows there. And on the middle, like on the upper side of the trail, that's the Parc La Vigne. Comment on l'appelle? So it's the La Vigne Natural Park. So basically that's what we're looking at. And Schedule D, which is probably everyone's favorite, it is Forêt-la-Rose. So this is what's being proposed. I will switch it to...
What is new is the dark gray on the left side. This was made in consultation with UCPR as they have the new trail system that is being developed. So it's to better protect the trail system. So, and the portion that is striped is really where only bow and crossbow would be permitted or is suggested to be permitted. Donc, ça, c'est la forêt la Rose.
So again, this represents the Forêt La Rose, and probably this is of great interest to everyone that is here, and the new part that has been suggested that would be prohibited is located to the left, down at the bottom, where you have a trail system that's in the process of being developed, and on the right-hand side, what is hash marked would be prohibited to the discharge for firearms, and also would be prohibited with regards to use of bows and crossbows. And this was done in consultation with the United Counties of Prescott and Russell. Now, of course, we've taken the whole of the municipality's map. I didn't have much of a success in doing so, but in any event, I do have some paper copies that are circulated amongst you. You have those maps that you'll be able to look at to make comments. Any comments, Mr. Mayor? Any councillors have any questions. Now, if you do have any questions, please step up front, give us your name and your address so that our town clerk can note those down. And I would like you to ask that question once. I don't want to have 4 individuals step up and ask the same question. So please don't repeat the same question. I would appreciate that because we have to close up another meeting subsequent to this one later on.
If we didn't have the same question 3, 4 times, if somebody asks a question, leave it at once, and you're quite welcome. Give your name and address when you come up to the front so that the clerk can write your name and if something has to be corresponded to you. And don't forget that the Forêt La Rose is part of the county. If there's something has to be done there, we'll have to consult with them because we're not the only one deciding, and there's only one schedule for La Forêt La Rose. The rest is all municipal. So let's start. Yes, sir.
Bonjour tout le monde. Ça va bien? Ça va bien?
Good evening, one and all. My name is Dan Implement. I'm a resident of the community here in Cheney, and I'm the chairman of the Ottawa East Ducks Unlimited chapter. I'm a member of Delta Waterfowl, one of the 2 biggest charitable organizations that preserve wetlands to ensure wetland preservation. I'm also an Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters that you discussed with during the course of this week, and I'm a fairly involved member of the hunting community here in Clarence and Rockland. I'd like to say a few words today to all of you to give you an overview of what motivated our thought and why we're here in great numbers here tonight. We want to ensure, of course, that you have all of the information that's relevant on hand to understand the impact of what's proposed today. Any hunter is going to tell you that safety is the primary concern behind every hunting activity, and this will not change my train of thought here today. What I'd like to make you aware of today, myself, many members of our community, and members of the organizations that I alluded to, we all believe initially that when changes had been implemented, that probably there wasn't all that much consultation that was ongoing with the community at that time in a direct fashion. Now, since the public notices were mailed out, the City of Clarence and Rockland was quite cooperative and gave us supported us great support to voice our concerns, and we thank you 1,000 times over. There are many changes that Mrs. Ouellette discussed today that directly stemmed from conversations we had with the City of Clarence and Rockland. I'd like to thank you 1,000 times on behalf of the community. However, there are some changes that we don't believe would be good for the community or even necessary to implement, and we'd like to discuss those with you, and we might give you a bit more of an insight of what needs to be done. I don't believe there was all that much discussion that was had with members of the community other than by emails. We'd like to make you aware of what's going on and what has been established. I'm not a plumbing expert, but I know a lot about hunting. I can't tell you, for example, how to come up with great decisions that impact municipal life here. You are the politicians. We are not. But I'd like you to review that even further. Mrs. Ouellette was giving you here today some details as to what had transpired. There were some errors that slipped by. It wasn't because of bad faith. One of the examples is that, contrary to what has been said, there's no restriction with regards to discharge of firearms along the river shore. There are none. At present, that's not the case. If you revise the Clarence bylaw at present, you can readily notice that. Also, well, in any event, I don't have to continue on with this. We just want to make sure that information that you have to work with are concrete and realistic. Now, the biggest problem facing us are those changes proposed at the La Rose Forest. We can understand that, in fact, there were some development works that were performed along recreational paths, but these are multi-use paths that include hunting activities, and it's illegal activity that's approved both at the federal and the provincial level, and hunting in La Rose Forest is something that has been ongoing for decades, really. Now, Yves, and I forget his family name now, the bylaw enforcement officer representing the city of Clarence and Rockland, in conversations that we had with him, confirmed that there were never hunting-related accidents in the La Rose Forest. Now, in keeping with the Firearm Discharge Act, throughout the country, there are many laws that do state that there would be no problems with paths, for example. It's 100% against the law to discharge a firearm close to a recreational path or across a recreational path. So to discharge a firearm about 150 yards from a recreational path might eliminate potentialities of security-related problems, but those security-related problems are not present. It only prohibits or restricts hunting activities. Hunting is part of our community and our heritage. Now, you've also proposed in a section to enact a section that's only reserved for crossbow and bow and arrow hunting, restricts hunting per se. Many people from other communities come to our community to hunt because of the public interest that adds money to our tourism industry and local businesses. And people might even go to Marlborough Forest and to continue on with their hunting activities without being subjected to any restrictions. I'm asking you today to take a look at this and to rethink your position on some things. I'll offer you freely and willingly any and all of the time that you would need. And I'm going to give the opportunity for the individuals to address you here today. And again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to give you our point of view. Thank you. Thank you. Well, the only thing I'm going to ask you to do is this. Might be worth, setting up a committee made up of 2 or 3 individuals. If we are to meet with Mr. Louis Prévost, I discussed this matter with him last week, and the Forêt La Rose falls under the United Counties of Prescott-Russell jurisdiction. He's ready to set foot here and meet with a committee. It doesn't make sense to have him meet with everyone here, and Mr. Louis Prévost might come down, and I could attend that meeting. We might ask Mrs. Ouellette to attend, along with you good folks, made up along with a committee of 2 or 3 individuals, and we'd go over all those points you'd like to discuss. Just tell us when, and we'll be proud to show up. We'd be proud to show up. Mrs. Ouellette, you do have this gentleman's phone number? Fine. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's greatly appreciated. Would you like me to give you my address now, ma'am? No, well, that's fine. Later on, we'll be fine. Would anyone else wish to address
comments or questions? Votre nom et votre adresse, s'il vous plaît.
Your name and your address, please. My name is Mathieu Lafleur. My address is 270 Trillium in Wendover. I'm also the owner of the Hunting and Fishing Pro Nature shop in Rockland. So, Mr. Mayor and members of council that are here in attendance tonight, I'm here tonight to hand over a petition to you that you had occasion to take a look at in part last week. We had about 11 pages filled out at that time. Tonight, I'm handing you a petition that contains over and above 330 names. Those are mostly patrons of my business that signed that petition at my business site here in Rockland. I sent it to you also in English, drafted in English, comments and discussions we would have had with different clients attending my store. Some of those things had been amply discussed tonight, so I'm not here to rehash old material. However, there are many individuals in attendance tonight, so basically, you hit upon a sensitive nerve. by broaching this subject. We're about 100 or so citizens that are opposed to what has been proposed. I'm proud to see that changes were brought about, but as mentioned previously, it's still not enough. You can't rely on a few complaints to adopt major changes in a rural municipality. We're not in the big city here.
I'm the owner of Pro Nature Rockland. My name is Mathieu Lafleur. Thank you for everyone who showed up or signed the petition tonight. We are showing the municipality that they've touched us personally. With me, Dan Applement, and everyone that wants to speak or that send an email, we're here for positive reinforcement. We don't want it's not a night bashing, if you want. On n'est pas ici pour détruire ce que les gens.
We're not here to tear down what people are proposing. We're just here to give you constructive criticism with regards to changes proposed with regards to the city of Clarence and Rockland, and I'm ready to put in my own time as well as to impart to you some of my knowledge and to attend a meeting that will involve those people that are involved in developing or rehashing this bylaw. I don't recall the date, but I was approached, I think sometime this year, this past spring, and I was told that, yes, I stood ready to sit in on a meeting to discuss all of this. So I won't take up any more of your time. If some of you would wish to obtain more information from myself, I can leave my business cards, or you can visit me at the Pro Nature shop that I run here, but I'll hand you the petition in any event tonight. And I thank you very much. I'd like to thank all of you for having been here tonight. All right.
Good evening. I'm going to address you in English just to be different.
Name and address.
Okay.
Name and address, please.
My name is Tracy Wilson, and I've actually moved out of the region, but I'm going to explain to you why I'm here. I'd like to thank the council, first of all, and the people of Clarence Rockland for facilitating this meeting. The most important part of any regulatory or policy change in any level of government is consultation with stakeholders. And being open to this discussion tonight proves positive that this community cares what each other thinks. My name is Tracy Wilson, and I am Vice President of Public Relations for the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights, a not-for-profit national advocacy organization that promotes safe, responsible gun ownership. We defend the rights of law-abiding firearm owners and hunters, and hunting is an integral part of our heritage in Canada and is protected in Parliament. I am an avid sports shooter, an accomplished hunter, and a registered federal lobbyist. But more than any of this, I'm a sportsman and I am a conservationist. I've spent the last 20 years trekking through the mountains, backwoods, and swamps of this beautiful area with my children in tow, teaching them a love of the land, a respect for nature, and a deep understanding of firearm safety. In this world of technology and advancement, these moments in the quiet are more precious than ever, and I urge you to explore every alternative to restricting this age-old pastime, an integral part of our culture. Hunters and townspeople have cohabitated together in unison for generations right here, as far back as anyone here can even remember. There has to be boundaries and respect for your fellow man. No hunter objects to that. But what they object to is the arbitrary rezoning of wetlands and hunting grounds they spent their childhoods on, or took their last trip with Grandpa out for some ducks, or had their first successful hunt with their child. I recognize that, as with all things, progress, building plans, and new people to the area have an effect on these decisions. But I urge you to consider this. Are we fixing a problem that doesn't exist? What kind of community are we becoming if we make decisions as important as this one without a basis in evidence? The people of this area love to hunt. They love their traditions, and they love the time with their families. They appreciate the ethical conservation that happens with well-managed hunting. Local businesses prosper from the influx of spending surrounding this sport. More revenue means more taxes, taxes that are vital to the local economy, and sales that are vital to the local retailers. people who work in this industry dependent on the abundant resources of this area to raise their families. Let's really take the time to drill down into this topic and do what is right for everyone involved. Let's do the right thing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next.
Bonsoir, Monsieur le Maire.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Martin Lacasse. I live here in Rockland, 2825 Valérie Place in Rockland. Just a small comment. Those people that appeared before me did a very good job outlining what their concerns were with great eloquence. So thank you for all of those individuals that implemented or put in changes in the potential adoption of the bylaw here today. I'm the chairperson of the Bow and Arrow Club here. There are about 95 members here in Rockland, and we'd encourage people to learn bow and arrow shooting. We start with people as young as 77 years of age, and we're working with members that are 85 years even and over. The bylaw that is proposed, Mr. Mayor, by the way, you state that the Bow and Arrow Club would have the right to conduct their activities within schools with the provision that they would have the permission of their school principal. I would like this to be modified to say that they would have permission from the school board. Minor change. And another thing also, Mr. Mayor, I would be interested in having access to the Jean-Marc Lalonde next year to host a bow and arrow tournament, and we could maybe come in to modify the bylaw to permit this. Well, we'll make the necessary arrangements with either Mr. Boucher or Mr. Joubinville. I would like that the bylaw does not exclude the possibility of proceeding to bow and arrow activities within the arena. We can add this. It's not a problem. Well, thank you very much.
Just a small change for us for the archery club to be able to shoot in the arenas, such as the one at Jean-Marc Lalonde in Rockland. So if that can be added to the bylaw, that'd be great. Thank you. Good work, everybody.
Good evening, Jérôme Longtin, 3422 Champlain in Bourget. I only have a simple question for all of you good folks. You state that Larose Forest falls under the jurisdiction of the United Counties of Prescott and Russell. My question is, why are we getting mixed up then in this? Well, as you're aware, the mayors sit on the county council. So if you want to implement changes or negotiate something, you go through the mayor to be able to negotiate with the director. The director is quite willing to sit down with us and to discuss this with us because we're dealing with county property, especially when we're dealing with Larose Forest. Yes, but we are the ones proposing changes, not the counties. Yes, go ahead. Well, there's a part of the Larose Forest, if not all of the Larose Forest. I'm sorry, I have a bit of problem here with my mic. You see, a part of the Larose Forest, if not all of the Larose Forest complex, I'm not too sure, falls within the borders of the city of Clarence and Rockland. So with regards to the firearm discharge bylaw, the onus is upon the Clarence and Rockland Town Council to legislate this, you see. Larose Forest, with regards to firearm discharge, cannot be legislated by the United Counties. So the part that you're proposing falls within the Clarence and Rockland jurisdiction. We were just informed of this, but yes, there are many bicycle trails, the new trails that were created this year. There might be a bit more restrictions in some territories, and that's why. I know the counties were getting involved in this. Oh, well, okay then. Thank you very much for the clarification.
It's concerning the county, as Madame Ouellette just informed me and everybody else, the firearm regulation in the Larose Forest comes under us, But there's still some negotiation to be done with them because they put a lot of bicycle trails in there, new ones this year, which are very popular. Apparently, there's a big demand for them. So I guess they're trying to protect the people that are going to be in there. So it's a question of sitting with them to figure out a way. And Monsieur Prévost, the director of the Forêt La Rose, is quite willing to come and meet and have a meeting on this. So it'd be no problem. Anybody else have questions? Well, because I discussed it with him last week to see, he was on holidays up to last week, so I asked him if he would be here whenever we needed.
My name is Roland Labonté, 3713 Prudhomme Road in Wendover. What I'm concerned is that when they talked about Pago Road, the developers don't have a setback because it's navigable water. I believe that EQ Homes own about 550 acres. They're in a good part of either part of Pago Road. Yes, but they still have some setbacks there along the waterways. But there are some homes at the other end. Yes, but they have setbacks there. There's forests, forested area, and if I fish there and I hurt a youngster when I'm casting my line, Mr. Bonté, you're talking about fishing here. I'm not surprised by your conversation. Do you go duck hunting with a fishing line in Wendover? No, but all I have to do is to cruise. Mr. Labonté, you're in Plantagenet Alfred. Pago is within Clarence and Rockland. Yes, but it's still the Ottawa River, not Pago. Pago Road is not the Ottawa River, but it's a navigable waterway. Yes. That's all I want to get at, because, we're putting an end to all wetlands. We don't have the right to fish or hunting along creeks. We want to develop this area, and we want to develop it so much that it's going to become the city of Ottawa. If we want to be living in a city environment, let's all move to Ottawa. Next person to address town council, please. Hi again. There's something that I'd forgotten to mention to you that's important for me to impart to you, and it's not necessarily, well, it's directly linked to the bylaw that is proposed. But I believe that's an ever-present problem with regards to hunting throughout the country. I'm a hunter myself, and I had to invest a lot of money and I put in a lot of time to have the right to do something that is a right and not a privilege by following hunting, proper hunting, teaching sessions geared for safety. When we hunt, we ensure that the majority of individuals will not discharge firearms in an unsafe manner. We're not going to hunt birds along a road or close to a house. And when we are on a river, that we stop shooting, even if we note that there are some fishermen nearby. It would even scare them off or lead to some dire consequences. It still does not prevent us from incurring problems with individuals that don't understand our heritage or that are against our sport or an heritage. Let me give you an example. Each and every year, at a distance of in between myself and the wall down there, I have some duck blinds, and each and every year there's a fisherman that's going to, park his boat smack dab in the middle of my decoys and my duck blinds. As hunters, we are forced to, cope with the oppression heaped upon us by those that are against hunting. And we have to make sure that they are kept safe in any event. But we have to ensure that non-hunters are as responsible as hunters are. All of this to say that my opinion that I would like to impart to the City of Clarence and Rockland here tonight, and that I would like to impart to the United Counties of Prescott and Russell, is this. This is a great lack of education, especially for those individuals that don't understand what hunting is all about, and they're afraid of what they don't understand, including firearm use. There are a great number of firearm users, but they're still considered as a minority group, and there should be more awareness, or an awareness campaign conducted throughout the City of Clarence and Rockland to make people aware of hunters that conduct their sport, that are involved in their sport in a safe way, and that are trained to do so.
Je suis pour la chasse. Je crois que tout le monde ici.
I'm in favor of hunting activities. I think everyone here is in agreement, and especially with regards to agriculture, we need hunters. We have some birds coming in spring that clear up the field in no time. The same rule applies to deers. They cause great damage to apple trees in our area, so we have to, resort to control of population with regards to that. And thank God for hunters. With regards to this, I'm going to try to set up, along with Mr. Louis Prévost, a meeting so that he may attend here. You can have 2 or 3 individuals that will represent your interests. We'll sit down with him and determine what changes can be implemented and bring those back to council afterwards. Thank you very much. I believe the council is unbeatable to this.
We will return to our council meeting on the other side. We will try and organize a meeting with some of a committee from your people. I will get Mr. Louis Prévost, which is the director of forestry in the county, and we will sit down with either some of the councillors that want to come and myself, and we will come to a proper agreement. Thank you, Monsieur Leval. Alors, on va s'asseoir avec, on va faire un comité.
So, we're going to come up with a committee. You have a question? Come on up. Please step up if you have a question. That'll be the last question, though. Last question of the night. Yeah, we'll defer some matters tonight because of the lack of time. Dominique Gélina, I live at 181 Wendover. I have a question for you good folks. Only a question? Yes, just one, yes. Now the railroad track in Bourget, do you know if that still belongs to CP? Yes. So what's the 150-meter provision doesn't belong to the municipality? Well, you see, the thing is that the county has entered into an undertaking with CP to maintain. The counties maintain and pay taxes on this property. This is a contract they entered into with Canadian Pacific. They're the ones that are responsible. Canadian Pacific, let me tell you, is very difficult to deal with. They can take over that railroad track the next morning. Oh, sure. But as things stand, the United Counties have a contract with them. It's sort of like a rental agreement involving this piece of land to allow that bicycle path be there.
And the county has a contract with CP, and they look after the maintenance, they pay the taxes and all this, and that's why it's sort of a rental to the county, and they're the ones that are responsible for it.
But there's a 150-meter provision that you're dealing with, and there are fields all around. Well, we're only asking 150 meters, but there are homes there too. I understand, Mr. Mayor. But in keeping with the map that well, it's something we can discuss with members of the committee. If there's something that you'd like to bring to the sitting committee people, because I'm going to ask the committee to defer this bylaw so that we can sit down and to come up with a proper agreement with everyone involved. It won't be decided tonight. Just suggest it to those people that will be in attendance. We'll let you know who will be sitting in the committee, and then we'll give you the end result. Thank you very much, then, folks. Have a great evening, and thank you for coming. And I appreciate your attendance. All right, then.
Pétition correspondance.
Petition and correspondence.
Lettre de... Pardon?
We're on to item 5 now. We've skipped over point 4, or would you like to tackle 9.1 immediately? Go ahead, Mr. Guillemard. Whereas that a new bylaw has been received by the Committee of the Whole, and whereas the public comments received further to the consultation process were considered by the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council adopts the final version of the newly proposed bylaw to regulate the discharge of firearms within the limits of the City of Clarence and Rockland that takes into consideration some of the public comments received as attached to report number Clerk 2018-10, seconded by Councillor Choinière. Can we recommend that this be deferred? Yes, I would like to move that this item be tabled to allow further meetings with those responsible, well, along with the committee. Seconded
Simard, tout le monde en faveur?
by by Mrs. Simard. Yes, all those in favor carried. Mr. Mayor, who's going to be nominating members of this committee? You will you? Well, I can ask councillors who are willing to attend to do so. I'm willing to take part in deliberations. Mr. Levert, also Mrs. Simard, fine. Great then, great. So,
Vous allez contacter le monsieur.
you'll contact this gentleman, and I've given him my card, and he'll come back to me.
Dire une date pour les 3 membres.
We can establish a date that requires that 2 or 3 members sit down. We'll contact Mr. Prévost. He's quite willing to come down. Let's just make sure that we come up with a date that's favorable for him as well as for us. Councillor Lalonde, I'm just wondering here, Mr. Mayor, we have 2 individuals from a rural area. Would it not be some propitious also to have someone that would represent the urban sector? Well, I believe it's a logical point that is brought by Councillor Lalonde. Mr. Lalonde, if you wish to sit, well, you'll be free. You'll have nothing to do. You have nothing to do. I'm going to move that Councillor Jean-Marc Lalonde be part of that committee. Oh, sure. No, I'm with the archery crowd. Mr. Lalonde, do you accept? Sure. All right then. Fine. Fine.
Ouais, mais là,
All right.
Monsieur Lalonde, Monsieur Levert. OK.
Councillor Jean-Marc Lalonde and Councillor Levert. Fine then. Thank you. Let's go on, shall we, folks? Let's try and catch up with what we need to catch up.
5.2,
With
5.1.
Item 5.2.
Ah, 5.2 pour la lettre de pétition. On va aller à 5.2 pour accepter.
Let's go on to item 5.2 to accept the petition. I move that the petition be received for information purposes and be filed. Seconded by Councillor Lalonde. All those in favor? Carried then, thank you. Let's go on now to item 5.1, letter from Mr. Yannick Loranger requesting a reduction of fees for a fishing tournament organized by the Ottawa River Guided Fishing. Mr. Boucher, do you have a bit of information with regard to this? Yes, we previously requested that the fees be reduced, but this gentleman has asked that fees be abolished altogether. And Mr. Loranger is asking that we do not request fees. We're only asking $10 that covers the employee that would be there, that covers the expenditures of the employee all day. So they figured they would have about 50 or so boats taking part, but they only had 10 or 12 boats attending. Okay, well, that's fine then. So, in any event, we've moved to receive and file away. Fine then. We'll have to answer him back. Let's go on to a policy update. AMO stands with Canada and Ontario on NAFTA. Fine. Moved and received? Fine. All those in favor? Carried. Item 5.4, letter from the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario regarding the 2019 Council Award. This is something that should be brought to Julie's attention with regards to Dr. Pelletier. I move that this item be tabled until the next meeting, Mr. Mayor. I had occasion to talk to the headman in charge, Harry Jones, and he asks that we wait until we come up with wait until we come up with one person to be nominated. So can we bring this back at the next meeting for further discussions, Mrs. Ouellette? All those in favor of bringing it back to the next meeting? Fine. Notice of motion then. Notice of motion presented by Councillor Mario Zant and seconded by André Gilles Lalonde for the installation of stop signs, whereas personnel has proceeded to a study to validate the installation of stop signs at the intersection of Albert and Saint-Jacques. Following receipt of complaints, be it resolved that Council approve installation of stop signs at the intersections, the southeast corner of Cercle Henri and west extremity of West Cercle Henri and east extremity of Cercle Henri, southeast and southwest corner of Saint-Albert and Saint-Louis, and be it also resolved that a bylaw be prepared for council consideration at the next regular meeting of council. This has already been seconded by Councillor Lalonde. Any questions? Is the department proposing that this be done, or are you proposing this? It's a mix, really, because there was a Saint-Jacques and Albert, there was a 90-degree elbow crossing, if I might use that term, and nothing was ever done with this. Cercle Henri is not a circle per se. It has a square configuration to it. It had no stop signs to it, and people were making dangerous turns when they had occasion to turn there. So the administration took a look to determine how roads were structured in that area, and they came to the conclusion that the resident was quite right in complaining. But don't they have to follow certain procedures?
And Eve had been called to go and verify to see if stops were actually needed there.
And then determine the warrants for...
Yeah, he actually said, he says it's a square, but there's actually within this square there are no stops whatsoever. It just keeps going. And so a lot of people were actually cutting into different lanes to try to turn, and were turning quite fast. So he basically looked at it and said, these deserve to have. And trust me, if Eve is saying they deserve to have stop signs, it's because they should be having something. So.
But shouldn't it be presented to, should we ask the department to check and then the department presents it as a resolution recommending that? Because it's just that it happened in the past where we agreed on something and then it went against the regulations.
Well,
there are some procedures that they have to meet some criteria, and if it doesn't meet those criteria, you cannot put a stop sign.
So can we go back to Eve and ask him to actually make a report on exactly what it is? He told me we're good to go, so...
There's usually a process attached to reviewing warrants.
Even Albert and St. Louis is a T, it's not a corner, so I don't know if it warrants a stop sign.
Monsieur Lalonde?
I'd just like to point out that it used to be, the stop used to be at Saint-Jacques and St. Louis. The reason they removed it in the winter time, when they were making the stop, they had a hard time to go up that little hill there. That's why they changed the stop sign the other way. Like Diane said.
But when you don't have a stop sign at a 90-degree angle, it's not a yield either. So you don't want people who are actually on the sidewalk taking a walk thinking that that person's got a stop sign and the other one's coming full speed ahead.
Well, it happens when you go on Ramseyville and you go towards Walkley, because it's a big slope going up. They don't put a stop for those people. The people coming this way on top of the côte, the hill, they have to stop. But the other ones come and they turn right away.
Okay,
well, let's get a report from Eve there and bring it on to next.
And if it is the recommendation that no one should stop on Saint-Jacques in order to make that hill, although there are steeper hills around, they still have stop signs. Maybe it's in the wintertime, we just need to sand and salt a little more. But if that's going to be the case, then the pedestrians on either side need to be well aware that the other street does not have a stop. So whatever they can decide. Am I wrong though? I'm pretty sure you and I were copied on an email where you said, okay, we're good to go.
We will
Okay,
defer.
so I know, I just wanted to make sure, because I thought for a second, I'm like, did I imagine?
No, we need to follow the
Okay.
process that
I
we have
understand.
done to
That's
every
fine.
other stop sign, so.
Okay.
Is everybody willing to defer this till the next meeting,
That's
till
fine,
we
yeah,
get a
I'm
report?
Well,
Is it referral or is it going back
Well,
to
go-
staff for staff?
Yeah,
Well,
return to staff to.
Till we get a report, so same thing, whatever you want to call it then.
It's deferred with a mandate to administration to.
Thank you, Mr. Zan.
It won't come back as a member's resolution, it will come back as an.
Okay,
Yeah,
whatever,
that's
yeah,
fine.
that's fine,
That works.
yeah,
Okay.
that's okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All good?
yeah, I mean, we want to take some time with that, where it's appropriate, analyze it, we'll go back and report with recommendations.
They did do traffic counts on Henry Circle.
Okay, that may very well be, I'm just saying that I think you want to do the safe thing here, is to make sure these things are done, we bring back a staff report. It may be, I'm hesitant to give a date specific, I think it could be within a month's time or so that we would bring it back. We'll bring it back as quickly as we can, but I think you want the department to do its due diligence and take a look at the
If it
counts.
hasn't been done, might as well do it.
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned, that one person may have an opinion on it, but I think we should follow the process that we've been using for motorway stops.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, there's conditions.
Okay, so everybody in favor?
It's probably
Bring
gonna
it
be
back.
fine, you know, but I just think that, you know.
Everybody in favor? Thank you.
Lame duck,
All
Madame
right.
Chouanière, voulez-vous
Lame
lire ça,
duck,
lame duck?
Mrs. Chouanière, could you please
On
read
va
this
voir, on a des canards ici.
lame duck provision here that we're dealing with here? We had ducks on the other, at the arena, we're dealing with ducks here tonight. What's the number?
Attends. Que le rapport numéro clerk 2018.
That the report number clerk 2018-13 in regards to section 275 of the Municipal Act 2001 be received as information. Seconded by Councillor Zant. All those in favor? Carried. Quack, quack, lame duck. What can I say, Mr. Mayor?
Mise à jour de la liste des
Let's go on now to the capital project list update. Councillor Zant. The report N 2018-2019
Madame Chouanière, question?
2019 be received. Any questions? Councillor Chouanière, I'd like to determine, I'd like to wonder what's happening. I believe that in 2014 we'd earmarked in the budget a certain amount to perform study for sanitary sewers in Bourget to be able to meet the commercial needs. There was already study commissioned to take a look at residential needs beforehand, and there was an also study commissioned to take a look at the businesses and residents in Bourget, and there are a lot of buildings that need sanitary sewer servicing.
I want to know what's going on with the study that was supposed to be done. We had the resolution, I don't remember if it's 2014 or 15, where we had a resolution saying that there would be a study done to see what kind of possibilities, what kind of type of sanitary sewers could deserve, you know, for the, could be the best fit for the center of the heart of Bourget, to meet the commercial and the residential. So.
I guess when I was here a couple of years ago, we happened to come across a report that was done by Dillon Consulting, and I think there were terms of reference that were given by the municipality. That report has never been tabled with council, and I think it's due. And you know, on the list of our capital projects, you'll see those projects, and we're indicating that there'll be a staff report coming forward at a September meeting to talk about that report, what it was recommending, and developing, you know, a position to move forward. I know the development charge bylaw has money allocated for it, so I think it's time to, you know, make decisions on how we're going to be approaching this. So I think all I can say to members of council tonight is that we will bring a staff report dealing with it. I think in a discussion you and I had just not too long ago, you said there was also an amendment to look at the commercial as well as
That's right,
residential. I'm not aware of that, but I'll certainly, have staff look into that. But you will be getting a report in September.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Autre chose?
Non, ça va.
Autre question?
Any other questions? All those in favor? Carried, then thank you.
Final sur les inondations 2017.
Final report on the 2017 flood. Councillor Zant. That report number FIN 2018-026 be received as information, and further that the Committee of the Whole recommends to the Municipal Council that it approves a $27,879.73 transfer to the Tax Stabilization Reserve, and further that the Committee of the Whole recommends to the Municipal Council the release of the amount of $105,000 pre-approved in the Road Reserve Fund. Seconded by Councillor Simard. Councillor Lalonde,
Question?
do you have any questions? Councillor Lalonde? Well, great news. The province decided to reimburse us for the road repairs. We were really not all that certain that we would be eligible for this, so it's really quite something positive for the town. Well, I'm in agreement. There was only $614 that were refused with regards to the whole project. I didn't really expect to have such reimbursement. You did a great job, and there was a lot of roadway to cover, a lot of damages to cover. So congratulations to members of our administration. All those in favor then. Great work, folks. Great work. All right, let's go on now to transfer of project rink boards. Whereas the Municipal Council has approved a sum of $30,000 in the 2018 budget to replace the wooden rink boards located at Richelieu Grande Rivière Park for an aluminum and plastic rink board system, and whereas the wooden rink boards in Hammond Park are in poor condition and require major repairs before the next winter season, that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Municipal Council authorize the Community Services to use a $30,000 budget dedicated for the replacement of the Richelieu Grande Rivière rink board towards the replacement of the rink boards at the Hammond Park, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Municipal Council mandate the Community Services to submit a capital project to replace the rink boards in the Richelieu Grande Rivière Park during the 2019 budget process, as recommended in report number LOI 2018-08-02. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Zant. Any questions? Mr. Mayor, because money from my ward is being taken from, I can say that as town councillor, I can say that as councillor of a given ward, you're also councillor of the city of Clarence and Rockland. And I took a look at the boards in Hammond, and really the Rockland boards are in much better condition than the others down there, but I'd like to ensure that next year for 2019 that the amount be set aside in the budget to oversee the replacement. Well, you can come back on the 1st of December to ask that this be done then. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. This is probably all those in favor, folks? All right then. Fine. Transfer of funds, renovation of Clarence Creek Community Hall, Mr. André Lalonde. Whereas Community Services did not include the revamping of the bar, renovation of the kitchen, and the purchase of a mobile stage and the replacement of refrigerators within the budget that was set aside for the renovation of the community hall in Clarence Creek. And whereas the capital expenditure project has a surplus of $28,653, that the Committee of the Whole recommend that the Town Council authorize a transfer of $28,653 from this particular project to the budget that would take care of renovations at the community, Clarence Creek Community Hall. I mean, that makes sense, Mr. Mayor. If we do have the money, we should do so. Councillor Chouanière, this was a project that was already in the works, so is there anything else to be done with regards to this? No, the community hall would be ready, fully ready. Well, it's bizarre, you know, to put those. We were also renovating the washrooms. It's as I stated, I visited the washrooms. Oh, I see. You visited a washroom visitor, are you? Yes, yes. Just to cap off discussions, those that did not have the opportunity to visit the washrooms there, when the community hall will be reopened, the floor will have had time to settle down. New asphalt floor. They did some very good job, and with the additional injection of funds, you won't have to visit washrooms anymore, will you? Well, I didn't know there were any washrooms down there, so I tended to washrooms here. All right, all those in favor, folks, thank you. Let's go on now to amendment to the ice rental policy, special activities. Whereas community services want to make minor changes to policy LOI 2017-01, which is the policy that regulates ice rental, in order to standardize a return of rented hours for special events, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends to Municipal Council to accept changes made to policy LOI 2017-01 as recommended in report LOI 2018-08-03. Seconded by Councillor Simard. Questions? Are there any differences with regards to last year's costs, Mr. Boucher? No, none whatsoever. None whatsoever. Except for washroom facility charges. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Boucher. All those in favor. Thank you then, folks. Lifting of part lot control for Block 44, Plan 50M-323 de l'Étang Street, Soloway Ride for Riverlands of Rockland Incorporated. Councillor Chouanière. Whereas the construction of the planned townhouse dwellings located on Block 44 of Plan 50M-323 has been completed in conformity with the approved plans to create 5 residential units with civic addresses 247, 251, 255, 257, and 259 de l'Étang Street, which are now available to be sold individually. That Council adopts a bylaw 2018-108, being a bylaw for the designation of lands not subject to part lot control for Block 44 of Plan 50M-323, Parts 1 to 12 on Plan 50R-10738, located within the residential project of the Clarence Crossing in Rockland. Seconded by Councillor Zant. Questions? All those in favor? Carried then. Thank you. Let's go on now to zoning bylaw modification, 2029 Clark Road. That the Committee of the Whole recommends to Council to amend zoning bylaw 2016-10 in order to modify the zoning category for part of the property located at 2029 Clark Road from Village Residential First Density Holding RV1-H Zone to Village Residential First Density RV1 Zone, as recommended by the Infrastructure and Planning Department. Seconded by Councillor Levert. Questions? Mr. Mayor, I was taking a look at this. That's at the corner of Charlebois and Claudette, I believe. Now, did we leave off a sufficient width for subdivisions to be built along that area? I took a look at what was happening there, and they didn't indicate the space that was left up for those vacant areas there. We're all cognizant of the fact that there's a subdivision to be built on the right-hand side of both lots. Are those two separate lots? It's not all that clear. Anyways, there are two square lot configurations in any event on the plan. It's about that, Clark?
Yeah. I was saying, first of all, I was asking, what's the width left? Because there's supposed to be a subdivision in there. And the entrance is on Charlebois Street at the corner of Claudette. And there's two lots in there. One lot, will it be a lock land? They're showing two pieces. Or are they extending the actual piece of land that they have there?
This report is just for the holding. It's just to remove the holding out of the lot. It's not for the...
Sur tout le lot. Tout le lot 2029.
That's the whole lot, 2029.
OK, c'est juste pour enlever tout le lot là, ici.
That's
C'est pour enlever le holding sur tout le lot.
they remove the holding provisions all along that whole lot.
They're showing there. No. It's marked partie de terrain, I think.
Part of the lot that's impacted by the request.
The arrow is pointing to the lot,
So why would there be a hole in half of the lot?
Yeah.
Basically the question. I think they want to release the purple part so the lot can be extended. That's why you need to release 2029. That's it. Yeah, it's a piece of land. They want to release.
So it was part of 2029?
Yeah.
Okay.
They want to release it to have a bigger lot.
Okay.
And then you need to remove the holding. And
Correct.
If they don't, they will not be able to construct on that.
OK. OK.
Okay.
Tout le monde en faveur? Merci.
All those in favor? Thank you. Let's go on now to construction monthly reports for June and July 2018. Mr. Leval, I move that the construction monthly reports for June and July 2018 be received for information purposes. Seconded by Councillor Simard. Questions? All those in favor? Did you have a question? Maybe just a comment, Mr. Mayor? Save it except for the industrial sector. It was a bit higher. Essentially, we'll have about the same data set as we had last year, right? The same data. Yes. As things stand at present, yes. That's it then. All those in favor? Carried. Let's go on now to the Protective Services monthly report for June 2018. Yes, that report number PRO 2018-016 in regards to monthly statistics be received as information. Seconded by Councillor Levert. Questions? Councillor Grimard. Just a comment here. I really appreciate when we do respond to fire alarms to have comments from the fire chief. I find that quite informative. Often we have...
Not only that we have something, but you take the time sometimes late at night to update us with the outcome.
We all appreciate
And you wake up in the morning and you got fresh information. It's awesome. Thank you for doing
You do it in a very timely manner,
Yeah.
which is great.
And I'd like to
Before we get the calls from there today.
congratulate the department because I know you had difficulties that night.
Yeah.
I hope we are inquiring about that default hydrant to find out what it is. I noticed today there was another hydrant way at the other end of that street. Is that one working or we checked that one? Yes, Mr. Wilson.
Through the mayor, every year every hydrant is supposed to be checked and flowed. I didn't check the one at the end of the debate. The problem with that particular hydrant from my perspective was that because it's a dead end hydrant, the water flow that we're going to get in a dead end hydrant is not ideal for the water that we needed to fight that fire. So we didn't flow that for the fire. And we struggled with the hydrants that we did initially. The easier run was back to the hydrant in front of Rona because we knew we could get good water out of that and get sufficient fire flow to put the fire out.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
And it was, we appreciate the help we got from our neighbors, Fournier and Ottawa, that came to help us out.
Is there a cost when we get those trucks?
No.
Thank you. And how about the Salvation Army?
Yes.
There's a cost for that.
Through the mayor, we pay $5 per, they call it a meal, which is per burger that they prepare. And we typically send that charge back to the property owner as a cost of the fire department being.
Monsieur Lebel, hello?
You mentioned, Chief Wilson, that every hydrant is supposed to be checked every year. How confident are we that that's actually being done? Because I have a hard time believing that they check, we have what, 900 or so? I have a hard time believing that they're checking every single one of them.
Through the mayor, that falls under the portfolio of Phil Cormier, who looks after the water contract with Aqua, so it's Aqua that does that testing. To the best of my knowledge, that is done every year, that they operate every hydrant and they make sure it's pumped out before winter so that there's no water in the barrel to freeze.
If I can, I've seen them do it in Saint Pascal.
Well, I know they do stretches, but every single one, I mean, you would see, you know.
They don't have any
Madame
choice.
Collier.
They have to empty the bell.
Madame Collier?
It is part of their contract, and it is an obligation that we have to meet running a fire department. So, I believe it's in one of their annual reports that comes to you, so I'm going to just follow up with what we report back to you, but certainly, it's something they're responsible for, and, it is done.
And thank you to your firefighters, because I saw some on Sunday morning. They were up bright and early at the soccer game and everything else, so yeah, hat off to them. They really did a good job.
All those in favor? Thank you then. Let's go on to the fire station construction update. Yes, I move that report PRO 2018-017 related to current progress of the new fire stations be received as information. Counts questions? Mr. Zant?
Because it's actually whose name is on the report. So my apologies if it's got to be directed. I'm sure Mr. Dinwiddie, you didn't really talk to me, so maybe I just wanted to make sure, because I know we had talked about exactly what the ratio was that was actually going to debt versus other sources of funding for the fire halls. And being that there's an election and a lot of people like to throw numbers around, I just wanted to make sure that $9,536,668.79 was not all going to debt, correct? Would you be able to maybe just briefly just talk about how much is actually going to be incurred from debt and how much is actually going to be in other sources? Now that we have like an updated. Are we talking about percentages or money?
He doesn't know that number right on top of his head.
Who?
We're just going to show a product that shows the split of debt and church funding.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. We're pretty sure it's 60-40.
That's the number we usually include.
Yeah, it's a comfortable number.
So 40 debt, 60
development charges?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
On
because
top
the
of that,
growth portion, sorry?
Yeah, okay, keep going.
The growth portion is what can be financed from development charges, and that's the bigger portion. So the piece that we're replacing or not replacing, which is the existing fire station. You cannot replace an existing building and pay for it with growth money, right? So no replacement. So the existing station is 4,000 square feet, and the new station is just under 12, roughly 10. So it works out 40-60. So 40% for the old and 60 for the new.
Perfect.
Let's not forget too, the part of the ambulance is all in there, and that's going to be paid back by the county, so we're sort of getting a location for that.
I just wanted to make sure that the facts were straight.
Madame Choignard?
Yeah, I have a question. The 1.4 million additional that it costs for the one in Rockland, is it because there will be the bylaw department will be
the bylaw is not in there
because it says fire bylaw EMS.
For Rockland building.
Only for Rockland, not for the other one.
So right now, as it stands, originally the plans were to include bylaw in the building. We haven't given up hope on trying to do that, so we're really looking at the plans to see if we can at least get the manager in there so he can liaise with his supervisor, who's the Director of Protective Services, and house the bylaw officers potentially at 1560 Laurier. So we're still working to see if we can make that happen.
So the 1.4 million additional, as
I'm
far
not
as
sure
the
what
cost?
you're referring to.
Yeah, it's 1.4 million difference between the one in Bourget and the
Mr.
one in
Wilson?
Rockland.
Oh, the difference between the
Yeah.
two, that's what I meant, what
Yeah.
was the difference?
Yeah.
Okay, Chief
It's a,
Wilson?
it's a square footage? Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, through the mayor, to the councilor's question, largely it's because of the size of the building. So the fire size is built bigger, partly because administration will be in there, as well as the classroom size is built to accommodate the emergency operations center. So it's slightly larger than the classroom size in Bourget. And the same applies on the EMS side, so the ambulance side is slightly bigger as well.
And there's more vehicles, right?
EMS gonna have 4 or 5, one on standby, whereas at Bourget, you only gotta have 2 ambulances.
Okay.
Just a quick comment, I think it's council's belief that we should not separate like departments, like if the bylaw manager is in Rockland, then everybody should try to be close to, not just him close to you, but the officers also. I'd hate to see them stay here and the manager go there. I think there's needs to be that synergy. So, okay, super, just a comment.
No, we want to keep them together.
Chief, in your report, you mentioned there's a section that says introducing additional, reintroducing budget items, and one of them that I think we had discussed was the heated floors, but it's not in your list. I just want to make sure that it's still in there.
Okay. Through the mayor, yes, the piping for the heated floors is contingency that we've got an item for, I guess, a cost for. Council had been pretty clear that they wanted the optional contingency items to come back. So that's...
Because it was just, you made a few examples, but that one was out, so just want to make sure it was still in.
And I think it's important to put the piping underneath for the radiant heat. So,
And
while it's not being done, it's the cheapest time to do it.
And
Mr. Wilson?
Sorry, just the other change order price that we will be bringing back for council's consideration will be the remainder of that system. So the boiler system and the pumps to run that 3D pipes.
Because council had approved to put the pipes in. The night that it approved the project back in June. Okay, so it's not on the list to come back because it is in. Yeah, exactly. That is the additional one.
Just to revisit the financing of the project, the percentage is 67%, which is the charge, and 33%, which is the debt. So 2/3, 1/3.
To allow to bring a drive-through. So is it going to be done for both of them?
Mr. Wilson?
Through the mayor to the councilor's question, certainly my desire would be to have drive-through bays in Bourget. We've had a number of backing incidents lately in Rockland, which I think demonstrates the value of having drive-through bays. But obviously that's a change order that would be above and beyond. We had to take them out in order to get the entire project to fit within our allotted budget, giving us a little bit of contingency. So we've done everything we can to narrow that cost down as best we can in Bourget. I haven't seen the final number, but the general contractor will be giving us a number to put that looped asphalt in and put the doors back in at the back of the Bourget station.
Okay, so they would be reserved. They would prepare it so we can add it later on without having to add a lot of cost into it.
Go ahead.
Through the value engineering exercise, we asked them to rough those doors in so that it was prepared for that eventuality. And fingers crossed we don't run into anything significant through building erection, and hopefully then we can come back to council and say we would recommend that we put that back in with the contingency that's in the project.
It's a weird question, but let's say we don't have them at the start of the Bourget, you say we have backing accident. Maybe stupid, do all the trucks have backup cameras?
No.
Oh.
None.
That would save, like, we have vehicles in the work I do, and we had backing accidents, the minute we invested a few $1,000s in good backup camera, no more accidents. Just maybe an idea.
So I should put it, first, we should go on car one.
Car one.
I haven't hit anything this year.
I don't know, have you seen
I thought they did.
I don't know, Mr. Mayor, have you seen the Subaru?
Listen, I
think that was a different truck with that.
We have a very unpredictable president down south who likes to impose tariffs. How worried are we that, you know, this might very much impact our both of those projects with the aluminum and metal? And I mean, have you guys started about thinking about contingencies if should that ever?
Through the mayor to the councilor's question, I've asked that exact question to the general contractor and been assured that that eventuality is addressed. However that's looked after, I'm not certain. So at this point in time, I have nothing to indicate that I would expect a tariff issue to cause us an escalation in cost.
You can always buy Canadian.
No,
You may have a weak inventory quantity.
I think.
All those in favor? Thank you then. Other items? You have any other questions? Councillor Zant, do you have any questions?
Mr. Wilson, where we at with the
It got derailed with this gun bylaw.
Is there any way that maybe pass on that when do you foresee maybe being able to complete it with the election wrapping up after October? Spring?
Can I just add something on the parking bylaw? And I totally agree that we need to consider that famous 3-hour limit
Yes.
in our city. It's creating a lot of work, unnecessary work for our bylaw officers. All you need is one complaint that complains often, and they are forced to go because we have a 3-hour. 8 hours, 10 hours, we should have some areas, key areas like Laurier, let's say, where we have a complaint, we chalk the tires for 3 hours. But anywhere else in the city where it's not a safety issue, Mr. Wilson can testify to a few situations that I'm reading. We need to do something where the resident is parked, it's in front of his house, he arrives at 10, leaves at 6, and somebody calls because it's more than 3 hours. And technically, we have a bylaw that they have to enforce. So it's creating even disruption between residents. We need to put the hammer on this and maybe look at, I think, 8 hours, or I don't know what's done anywhere else, but it's unfair to our officers. We ask them to enforce something that is technically unenforceable, and when they do, it really creates a bad atmosphere between neighbors.
Could we bring a change to that bylaw just like that for that 8 hours to put it to up to 3 hours, 3 hours to 8 hours?
Well, I can ask, Mr. Mayor, any specific problems that any members of council would have specific problems with any part of this bylaw, if they could send those problems in writing to me via email, and I will review this with the bylaw enforcement manager. Because, you know, we don't want to change the bylaw from stem to stern. I understand. I agree. Maybe to send off an email would be the best idea. I sent you an email previously, did I not? Yes, and I'll send you other emails.
One that asks the residents to pay for their accidents that happen within there. We had talked about this. I don't believe it ever been. Are we looking at making a change to the bylaw, or are we looking at just status quo?
I guess through the mayor, back to the councilor's question, I haven't received, I don't know clear-cut direction from council to look to change that. I believe it's under the user fee bylaw that says if we go to an accident, we bill for it. So that process is still ongoing today.
And this would be something you'd want to discuss at budget time, because we do have a budget attached to that particular fee to achieve. So if you want to change the policy, then we have to change the budget.
Okay, is there anything bringing it back, or is this
We can bring a report back on it.
And then just tell us exactly what the budget impact is going to be if we choose to actually change that. That would be great. Right now we have Mr. Darch and then sorry, it's coming to you. No, just say it's coming to you. But right now we have a limit on Laurier Street as to what we consider a core, as far as like core businesses and non-core businesses. There are some businesses who are outside of that core who no longer qualify or don't qualify for the 10,000, I think it's allocated, right, the program that we have. I don't know I know it's obviously not something that we can change, but I don't know what everybody else's opinion on that. When we have a business on Laurier Street that's actually just trying to make their building look nicer, why would we limit it to a core? I understand what the core is for, but as far as that project, why wouldn't we encourage other businesses to use it?
I believe we said we would not refuse any business.
We didn't have that many.
Well, we have one business that asked and they were told no. They said, you are not in the core. And so, would we be able to look into that? Because I think this business is investing quite a bit of money in reconstruction. And if $10,000 could help them out, then is that okay? Okay, perfect. And last question. We have lights at the Food Basics and Highway 17. Rockland Manor is there, and there's a lot of senior citizens who want to cross to go to Food Basics. The light there does not last long enough, and some senior citizens, by the time they make it midway, start getting honked at because now they're going to get hit by cars. So, is there a way, I know it's are lights county, or is there a way to communicate with the counties to make sure to say either to have the timers that actually flash the count down so that the senior citizen has time?
Send me an email tomorrow and I'll contact Mr. Clermont and we'll get that fixed.
Okay, because there's also the one at Chamberlain and the highway as well. So that whole area is starting to be built up, and the seniors actually want to cross over into going to the dollar store or whatever. They can't cross the street. There's just not enough time.
Well, able-bodied people can't cross.
What's that?
Able-bodied
Correct.
people can't cross.
Thank you. My apologies.
Pedestrian overpass.
Yeah, pedestrian.
The traffic flow, like in the future. I know it's hard, but.
How about getting a 4-lane first?
No, just have flashing.
All right, so that's it for my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Janelle?
I have 4 also. And the 4 are for public work.
See, I told you we weren't going to be deprived.
For either one, Mr. Vizay or Mr. Darch. The speed bump on Saint Jacques Street, I think you got the request already. And I can tell you that I'm not too in favor of a speed bump. Even with the rock road before, the people were asking for speed bump, and I kept telling them the speed bumps are already there because they're all But now they say I was expecting that traffic they drive too fast. Is it possible to get what we call the traffic calming post? That's what you got behind the.
Yeah, I got a lot on my street.
You got a lot, about 5 on Chamberlain. All I would need is 2 in there. One on the north side of La Villette to Patricia, and the other one on the south side of La Villette to the curve which goes right up to Saint Denis.
Okay.
Okay, my next one is, before I go to that one, I should say, I want to say thank you for having the grass cut where we are going to have the future site for the fire station. The people were telling me, you're forcing us to cut the grass. Look at your property. They were about 18, 2 feet long, high, but it's been cut. The one that I have here is, I brought it up quite a few times about the burnt light. We have 14, which 7 on the main street. Right in front of the city hall there are some. There's and then the entrance on the port is 1. I should give you the list, there's 14 of them.
This is in general just burned out streetlights. There doesn't seem to be a proactive program to replace.
Richelieu from the Walmart to Richelieu, really. There's 2 burnt light in there, and it's dark. There's only 3 in that small stretch.
If you can provide me with your list, but also I think we're going to look at, generally speaking, how we go about, monitoring, checking, and replacing.
Can I propose something, in regard to that?
Sorry?
So the reason nothing's been done is because we're changing all the lights to LED, so it's supposed to be.
Yeah, when's that project starting, by the way? It started, I think.
Would it be possible for the citizens to go on the website and indicate when there's a light that doesn't, isn't
But I think
functioning?
we're changing all to LED. They're going to last much longer, so there'll be a lot less maintenance on that. I know.
But some area.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the other one was the 2 other ones, 2 complaints. they're having the stormwater master plan study working on at the present time. The flyer that was sent to every home from the city, it's both French and English. But the explanation that they asked the people to sign is in English only.
Okay.
I'll give it to you after.
Yeah, okay.
And this was done the same thing for the Cornwall gravel. Cornwall gravel, I know it's not the city, but it's a municipal road. That was done in English only.
If you can just provide me with copies.
This one was given to me on in Rockland East in Europe. And the other one was in Saint-Jacques.
Monsieur Grimard, vous avez une question?
Oui.
You have a question, Mr. Grimard?
I don't know in the rural areas, but it seems like we had some trouble managing our grass cutting from outside. Like the tender we went with, I know we had a cancellation because the company we chose, we went to the other one. I've received several complaints of grass on city property that is growing. And I want to highlight one point. If you're going on Laurier from City Hall, you're going eastbound. The road that leads to go to the Jean-Marc Lalonde Arena, so you turn right up, it's Simoneau. Simoneau. There's a house on the corner which they have part of their lot, and then it's city grass, and I mean, it's not being cut at all. So I think I informed Julian on a quick email, and it still hasn't been done, so can you?
Okay. Yeah,
and I know it's not our employees, but I think it may end up being our employees.
If it's under our control, though, even if it's contracted.
No, it is the cities. Yeah. And I guess my point also is, Mr. Mayor, is we do have a policy to go to the lowest bidder to give these contracts, but I think at one point we need to balance having references on those companies, not only that they meet, because I can write what I want to meet a tender and be the lowest, but then if they call about my company and haven't done a good job, and I'm not saying they don't, but do we have a process to verify references? Because I find this year has been very different than the other years, and not in a positive way. So.
Okay. We've got a process. I can't say that the city has ever taken somebody off the list for poor performance, but there should be an evaluation, and if somebody continues, it's sort of like progressive discipline. If you give them notice they're not doing work, give them opportunity to improve, and they don't, then I think it's reasonable that we don't accept the firm.
I'm sure if you have a chat with Mr. Roussel, you might have some comments to that effect. Maybe I'm the only one, but I've had 3 calling for city grass that used to be well cut, and this year it seems to be growing more. And maybe cut less often as the previous years.
My question is a safety issue. You know where the partage is on Laval? The owner of the property on the east side of the partage and on the west side of the partage, the people are parking in front because it's like there's an entrance, then there's just a space for a small car, and then there's the entrance for the partage, and then there's the entrance for the, there's again a little space for the park, and then there's the entrance of the other residents. And what happens is that people come with trailers, and they come with bigger truck, and then a truck cannot fit. Like it would block the entrance of the partage, and it would block also the entrance of the residents. So the 2 residents keep complaining, and they cannot get out. They have to wait. And some people, they even tell them, like people walk out of their car and they tell them, "I need to get out. Would you need?" "Oh well, I'm just going to be here 5 minutes." And the owner has to stop.
I sent a message to Monsieur Wilson last week.
Okay, so maybe if I don't know what would be, either put some lines where the people can park, or just prohibit parking altogether. Because even people who go into the partage, there's not much room in the parking lot to turn around. So they need a little bit of space before they go into the street, because when they are parked, you cannot see any car coming. So if they can go where people park, just to back up, and then they can enter more safely into the street.
Is it our land?
It's on the street.
Oh, it's on the street.
It's on the street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mentioned, and I said, like I said, I sent an email to Mr. Wilson about it. So. Monsieur Levert?
every village has, not every village, but we have one in Clarence, there's a few in Rockland, but Fournier has it, Curran has it. As you come in the village, it flashes and tells you how fast you are coming. I don't know, Hammond, we seem to have a problem with speed coming from Joannis, coming from the east. There's the curve as you come in there, and it changes to 50 before the curve. And people are coming in at 80, 90 kilometers an hour right through the village. And
Did we get 2 of those signals from the county this year?
there's one in Bourget, but I mean, it'd be
Makes
nice.
a big difference.
Oh,
in
yes.
people stopping.
Oh, yeah.
What happens is the county has some, and last year, you have to apply the year before. So I asked if there was 2, and I asked to have 2. The county puts it on their county road. Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Mayor, I had a conversation today with the OPP Traffic Management Officer, Constable Bergeron, in regards to speeding complaints. This was in regards to loud motorcycles and cars, but that led to a discussion on speed. His perception is that the flashing speed signs were effective when they first came out, and now that nearly every village in the region has them, they're becoming less effective, because it used to be sort of this attention-grabbing thing that was different, and now that they're becoming very, very common, that they're becoming less effective. That's the opinion of the traffic management officer. His recommendation to me today was if the city would consider getting some temporary signs that said something to the effect of radar enforcement ahead, that could be moved around the municipality, that we would be willing to work with the city, that if we knew that there was a particular area where there was a speeding issue, the city could put up these temporary signs for 3 or 4 days, and he would make a special effort to be there and have a visual presence, so that as these signs move around, the residents would learn, hey, when this sign's here, there's likely an officer doing speed enforcement. That was a suggestion. I don't know if it's something that council wants to try.
Why put a sign to warn them? You don't want them to slow down and catch them. They'll soon slow down. Ask me.
What actually works is actual enforcement. They don't do speed traps anymore.
Well, you say that, but on Skip.
Yeah, well, they know you live there.
I still say that these flashing signs do have an effect on people. I mean, every time I see one in the village, it just draws my attention, and I do slow down.
You can't slow down. You're already going 30 kilometers.
I know, but
Simon, Monsieur Lalonde? Okay, we're good. Okay.
Adjournment then called at 10:32 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, and have a great evening. We'll see you next time.
I believe and I'm in Jeanne d'Arc. This is our off Jeanne d'Arc, but I walk in Jeanne d'Arc a lot with the dog. Watch, I'm watching you. Anyway, it's 60 kilometers. Okay, it's Boulevard, and we have one of those speed signs right by the fire station. Okay?